I love interacting with patients and I love hearing their stories because it motivates me and it motivates all of us. And so um, I really feel like we're fighting for those patients to bring them relief from this, debilitating disease that they suffer from.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the Virtual Investor On Demand Summer Spotlight What's Your Story series. My name is Janine Thomas. I am CEO of JTCIR, and today we are featuring Rob Berman. He is Chief Executive Officer of enVVeno Medical. Welcome, Rob.
Hey, Janine, always good to talk to you.
Before I speak with Rob, I'd like to remind you that enVVeno Medical trades on NASDAQ under the ticker NVNO, and the company will be making forward-looking statements, and I encourage everyone to view the company's website at enVVeno.com, as well as the SEC's website for their latest filings and information. All right, so Rob, the goal of this venue here is to just have our audience get to know you a little bit better. So we want to learn more about you and hear your story. So I'm just going to start with this. So you've had success across multiple careers. Is there a common thread across those careers that have led you to your successes?
Good question. Um, you're correct. I have done a bunch of different things. And as I look back, Janine, I think that I've gained things and gained skills, from each job that I've had, even though those jobs are unrelated to what I'm doing today. For example, I waited tables all the way through college. That taught me how to deal with people. I worked at a law firm after going to law school for a little while. I use those legal skills every day in my role as, CEO at enVVeno. QVC, right? What would QVC have to do with my job here? Well, I was at QVC and they taught me how to tell a story, how to sell by telling a story. Um, at Acacia, I learned how to grow a company from a $20 million market cap to, $1 billion market cap. So I use all of the skills that I picked up along the way, and all of those skills are beneficial, to what I do, here at enVVeno Medical. Another common thread is that whatever job that I've had, I've always treated it like it's the most important job in the world, almost like it's a matter of life and death. I think about work constantly, no matter what else I'm doing. And it's very hard for me to completely turn off my brain. I think, by the way, today we call that obsessive compulsive disorder, but um, you know, it's just my ability to focus is really, really good. And, um, if you're a shareholder or a prospective investor and you're thinking about investing in a company, you have to think about what characteristics you want in a CEO. And, I am always thinking about the company and things that we're doing and ways to do them better, almost to an obsessive compulsive degree. And so um, those are sort of the two common themes that I would say have been intertwined throughout the various jobs that I've had in the various careers.
Rob, I've known you now a few years, and I can definitely attest to the fact that the enVVeno is at the forefront of your mind, and you're constantly thinking of ways to advance the company, meet the company's needs at all times. When you think about that, what keeps you up at night when you think about enVVeno Medical?
There's things in every business that you can control, and then there are things that you can't control. And the goal that I have for my team and for our company is to be as close to perfect as possible in the things we can control, so that we can withstand the things that we can't control. For example, right, we can control our FDA filings, we can control our trial execution, we can control our research and development. And it's important that we're near perfect in those types of activities because there's other things that we can't control, things like the economy, diseases that come about like COVID, staff cuts at the FDA or CMS. And in my view, in order to succeed, you need to be close to perfect in what you can control in order to withstand what you can't control. And so that's really what I think about, um, and particularly the things we can't control and how we can achieve success regardless.
So, Rob, what makes you get out of bed in the morning to go to work?
Honestly, it's the patience. When you meet with patients and you hear things like, I got my life back. I can kick a soccer ball with my kid. I can go swimming with my kid now. I'm no longer housebound. When you hear stories like that from patients, it really encourages you and encourages all of us. And I feel like, yes, we want to do well for our shareholders. We want to make money. We want the stock to go up. But we're also fighting for these patients because there's 2 to 3 million of them in the US that really don't have any effective treatment options right now. And the Veno valve can be life changing for those patients. And so I love interacting with patients and I love hearing their stories because it motivates me and it motivates all of us. And so um, I really feel like we're fighting for those patients to bring them relief from this, debilitating disease that they suffer from.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I know this whole session is not meant to be about the company, but you brought up the patients, you brought up the stories, you brought up the conversations. I do encourage everyone to go to the company's website, as I mentioned in the beginning, at enVVeno.com, because there are really important stories on their website. You hear right from the mouths of the patients. So, you've talked about the multiple career roles that you've held over the years that brought you to enVVeno. Now you're CEO of enVVeno Medical, an important medical technology company in the space. What advice would you give young entrepreneurs that are just starting in their careers?
I think you have to be curious and you have to ask questions, and you should never stop learning. I think one of the Ted Lasso episodes, he talked about being curious. And I think, an insatiable curiosity. I love learning new things. For me, I don't think I could have had the same career for 30 or 40 years. I would have been way too bored. I like to learn new things. And I think that that trait is one of the reasons why I've had success in fields that are unrelated to each other. For example, I write my own presentations because I want to do the research for those presentations because that's how I learn and that's how I learn the content. And so, in my view, I think that you should never stop wanting to learn new things. You stop learning when you die. And so I love jumping into new things and devouring content because I have a real sense of curiosity and a desire to learn. And that's the advice that I would instill in an entrepreneur if I was asked that question.
So, thinking about you love to learn, is there anything that you've learned on a personal level, not work related lately?
Well, unfortunately, and I mentioned this, I think, in one of the tech um, interviews that I recently did. Unfortunately, my family lost our home in the Pacific Palisades fires in January. And it's really quite an experience to lose everything that you own and your community and my daughter's school in, like a 24-hour period. And so the question is, what can you learn from that? And, I apply sort of business to my personal and personal to my business. And what I mean by that is, our company was in pretty bad shape during COVID and was in pretty bad shape when I took over the company. And you just have to plow through it. You just have to put your head down and put one foot in front of the other and keep working through it and keep at it until you get there. And I think that applies to things like moving our family forward and rebuilding our lives after the fire in the Palisades. And it also happens to things in business when you have setbacks, and you're going to have setbacks. Every business does. I do think that you actually learn more from your failures and your setbacks than you do your successes. And you have to keep putting one foot after the other and keep your head down and keep working through it and work the problem. And so I don't know if I quite answered your question, but that's my answer, even if I didn't answer your question.
Well, you did, Rob, and our thoughts and prayers remain with your family because while it seems like every news has moved on, to other topics and so forth, I'm sure it's still very raw. I'm sure it's still um, just unbelievable what's happened to your family, your community. So, thank you for sharing that. I think just before we close, I know this is about you and getting our audience an opportunity or giving our audience an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. But before we close, why don't we get to know enVVeno a little bit better? So, what separates enVVeno from other medical device companies?
Opportunity is to be the first and only medical device for a market of 2 to 3 million patients that don't have any effective treatment options. Those types of opportunities don't come along that often. And I feel like we have a tremendous opportunity ahead of us. And if we execute, there's no reason why we can't be the next, Anari, Shockwave, Silk Road. Anybody that's been following me for the last 5 years, you've heard me mention those companies because they had first in class medical devices. And each of those companies grew to be multi-billion-dollar market cap companies. And as it turns out, each of them were purchased in the last year. And so that's the potential that we have at this company. And I tell our employees all the time that, this opportunity doesn't come along that often. So we have to make the most of it. And so I think that separates that in that we truly have unique products to fulfill large unmet medical needs. We are not a me too. We're not a better version of something else that's out there. And those opportunities don't come along that often. And if we continue to execute, we're going to build a lot of value around those opportunities. And that's what we're here to do.
Excellent, Rob. Well, that's all I have for you. Appreciate you sharing your story. And I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in to the Virtual Investor Summer Spotlight What's Your Story featuring Rob Berman of enVVeno Medical. So if you're interested in what you heard today, I encourage everyone to view the company's website at enVVeno.com for more information. Also, go to their website to sign up to receive their alerts as well as follow their social channels to stay current on their latest information. And if you'd like to hear more Summer Spotlight What's Your Story webcast, we encourage you to visit our website at virtualinvestorco.com. Rob, thanks again. Appreciate you sharing today. And I want to thank all of you for joining, and I wish everyone a great rest of your day.
Thanks for your interest, Janine.